and reduce the costs of stuff and then don't do anything else. Okay, so that's the libertarian argument. So when they bring up means testing, they're just lying. Okay, they're just making it up. So I think that's probably about all I can talk about that. Now I did want to go into, so this is like a done deal. This Medicare for all and UBI is just a no-brainer. Everybody should be supporting this, and I think even like I said, if they lie about it and they try to come up with all these excuses, you could just blow it out of the water. It's just government cutting checks, and then on the back end trying to control the cost. That's it. So these are things that have to happen, and I think they will happen. I mean, even Trump is talking about giving money to people, so I think this is a done deal. But my next step, and actually I think we should go way beyond that. So you might want to say I'm left of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders to me is a 1950s Republican or a 1980s Democrat. Okay, Democrats and Republicans that we have nowadays are so far to the, well, you could call it right. I don't want to use right left paradigm speak, but you might want to say that they're so corporatist and they're so capitalist, or even that word is not really that great. But they're way off. They're off. They're as far away from helping no ordinary people um, that you can be right now. So we need to bring all this back. The government should only be there to protect and help the people, the public. And the people they need to protect first is from the bottom up. Okay, you got to make sure that the least of the society is protected and supported and helped, and then you go up from there. You don't start at the top, help them, and then expect them just to, you know, trickle down their help. Okay, that has not worked. That shit will never work. That shit is designed by the oligarchs themselves to just have unlimited power and control. So my next thing is we also need, see, this goes along with the cost. See, UBI, especially at $1,000, I kind of wish um, Andrew Yang didn't bring up $1,000 as the amount, because that amount is so tiny, especially in California, that it's like the bare basic minimum. I mean, in other cities, other states, and stuff like that, I suppose $1,000 a month might do all your expenses. But nowadays, unless we do some serious cost cutting on the other end, $1,000 ain't gonna do it. But anyway, I guess it's a good start. It's like a floor, really. It's not really to provide everything, but it's more of a floor just to keep poverty from. I mean, it essentially eliminates poverty, because if you say poverty is 12,000 a year, uh, you give everybody a minimum of 12,000 per year, then so-called poverty's gone. But I think you got to go state by state because the cost of living is different. Um, but even that would be a means test, and I would say just eliminate the means test. It is definitely better just to have one price, give it to everybody, and then done deal. But I say that especially during the coronavirus and whatnot, we need a mortgage, rent, and lease moratorium. I mean, uh, our housing has become, I mean, and in my earlier videos, I explained how the housing bubble was created by the oligarchs just to steal all of our homes, all of our family homes from us. So the whole thing has been a scam from the beginning. And the thing we really need to do immediately is to just say, okay, we're putting a freeze on all payments, all rent payments, all mortgage payments, all these payments. So that's going to help. I think that helps infinitely more. I mean, not infinitely, but that's even better than UBI. I mean, UBI is necessary for your buying your food and all that stuff, especially if you don't have a paycheck and you're supposed to be quarantining yourself or whatever. But that doesn't do anything for your rent. So your rent check definitely needs to be eliminated, at least for this time being. But I say we should think about eliminating it permanently, because what happened was the banks have stolen everybody's titles from their house. I mean, think about this. Um, you're going to buy a house. You go to the bank. You say, okay, let's do a mortgage. The bank doesn't own that house. You know what they do? They literally um, create the money out of thin air. They don't have that money. They've just put it on a piece of paper that's saying, oh, here, all right, we're going to give some of the money to this person, and they're going to go away. And then we're going to give the house with a mortgage to this person. Now this person's going to pay me all this money, right? And the value of the house is just, it's like la la land. I've done real estate. I did my broker's exams and everything, and they got different ways to think. They don't even base the price of the house on actual materials and building, and so in other words, you would think, oh yeah, this house, it's got this many materials, this many this and this, so it was actually, the value of it is actually like $20,000, let's say. So if you add up all the labor and all the materials and all the costs, it costs $20,000 to make that house, right? Well, they turn around and sell it for 100, 200, 300. If you're in California like I am, we got $1 million house that's a 3 bedroom. I mean, it's a piece of junk. It, when I was in Michigan, I was born in Michigan. In Michigan, when I was a kid, if somebody had $1 million house, I mean, you're talking about 20 rooms, you're talking about 10 baths. I mean, just outrageous. You got huge acres of land and all of that. That's $1 million house. I come to California in 2020. $1 million house is a little shack, with 3 bedrooms and maybe 1/3 of an acre or something. So the pricing has nothing to do with actual value or actual cost of making a house and doing and whatever. It is all fake. It's been blown up, this huge bubble. So I mean, that's a long-winded way of saying that. Number one, the value of the houses is completely fake and phony and made up, but also the banks. The reason why and the other reason, I mean, there's many reasons why they've done that. First of all, the property tax is based on the value of the house, or the appraised value of the house. So in other words, they want more money on property tax. The banks wanted to steal your money and steal your house, so they jack up the price of the house up, and they make more money. Then the other thing that they want, and this is why they have those houses even in their thing, because in a bank, the house, or all these mortgages look like an asset to the company. So if they got all these $500,000 $1 million houses, say they got $100 million houses, well, that's 100 million assets, right? So 100 million assets, even though none of those houses are worth $1 million, it doesn't matter. They still, on their books, they say, oh, we're worth $100 million as a bank or whatever. And I'm just using 100 million as just a round number, but it's in the billions. So, and these banks, they're fake. They constantly get free money. All right, the government just gives them free money. They're supposed to lend it out. They don't lend it out. What they do is they go play with it in the stock market, and anytime they win profits from the money that they're playing around in the stock market, they put it in their pockets, directly into their executives' pockets, and they walk away with the money. And then eventually they play around in the stock market and then lose some of the money. And once they lose the money, guess what? They come for another bailout. Well, that shit's got to stop. What I say we do is you let all those banks fail, close them down, shut them down. They're corrupt. I mean, it would be simple to prove their corruption. And even if you don't put them in jail, which they probably all deserve to be in jail, the least you should do is shut them down. And they act like, oh, it's saving the economy by saving the banks, but that's totally ridiculous. The banks are I mean, we don't need banks. I mean, we can have the treasury of the country become the bank. All right, it can take back its control that it's supposed to have of doing banking. So we don't need all these stupid banks, because all these banks is the oligarchs' way of controlling the money supply and controlling everything. So one thing, once we close the banks down, we're going to have all these mortgages, all the titles. So everybody that's living in a house should own that house. It shouldn't cost rent. It shouldn't cost mortgage. It shouldn't cost a land lease. See, I'm in a 55 and over house. I own my unit, but I have to pay a permanent monthly land lease to the stupid person that owns the whole subdivision here. Um, Now that lease is going up and up and up. I mean, there's a California law that they're only supposed to raise rent $50, and they can't raise it more than $50 per year. And my last year was about 180 something, So they jacked it up, and they're charging me all these fees and stuff that I never agreed to. Um, so it can't just be mortgage, rents, and stuff. It also has to be land leases and everything. And imagine not having that payment on the back. And here's the thing. Here's the nice thing about, unlike UBI and Medicare for all, the housing for all that I'm proposing costs nothing. It doesn't cost anything. It's just taking everything back from the. Well, here's the thing. You shut down the banks who have the mortgages. You take the titles away from them. You put the titles back in the name of the owner. And when I say owner, I'm saying the person that's living in the house. So all these people that are running around renting out 10 houses, I'm sorry. You keep your best house. See, with this system, what I would say, you get your best house that you want. You live in it. You actually live in it. You receive your title to the house. You own it free and clear. Even if you're a guy that has like 10 housing units or whatever, and you're paying on all of them, and then you're receiving a bunch of rent on 9 of them while you live in one of them, I'm saying don't worry about it. All of them will be paid off, but guess what? Each person that actually lives in each of the houses is the one that's going to get the title, not this landlord dude, right? But the landlord dude is going to benefit also because he's going to get to pick whichever one is the best house, and he's going to live in the best one. So he's still going to get free and clear house. So everybody benefits, right? And then the good thing is that everybody will have their own house. Everybody will have shelter. Then the second thing is what I've heard in California that the governor wants to do for the homeless people is all the leftover houses that are just sitting vacant, and there's tons of them. I mean, this country is full of houses. We have enough houses for every family and even every individual. So the idea that we don't have, I mean, the idea that there's so many houses sitting vacant is just a travesty. But anyway, if you give everybody their own house, this is like a reset, okay? This wouldn't be like a permanent thing where everybody could come from other countries and then all of a sudden get a house. This idea is more like a reset to restart everything, and then move on. So once everybody's got a house, the homeless people also, I mean, they could take over hotels, they could take over, and this is part of what I guess Gavin Newsom's talking about reusing some hotels and stuff to put homeless people in. And if you really think about it, we have a whole country, so um, I think if we're giving away houses, there's also a thing about moving people to away from areas, like cities and stuff, especially homeless people. Maybe move them into more rural areas or whatever. I mean, there's a million ways we could do this, but the beauty of the housing piece of it is it doesn't cost any money. UBI and Medicare for all is actually, you got to take money out of the money system and you got to pay for it. So you're going to have to constantly these payments going out, which yeah, we can do it because we could just print as much unlimited money as we want. But the mortgage thing, these houses already exist. They're like a physical thing that already exists, and you're already sitting in your house. And it's just a matter of saying, okay, now you own the house, right? So that's the simple thing. Let all these banks go out of business. Let all these landlords get their best house and then not get any more money from everybody else, right? So sorry, landlord, you're going to get the best house that you have, but you're not going to get all these people having to pay you every month. So sorry, you know, too bad. We're not doing that anymore. and then everybody has a house. Now, the next thing I think we need to do, and this could happen, all this stuff can happen simultaneously, I think. Um, we need to disclose all science, energy, medical, technology, knowledge. Everything needs to come out. And there's a bunch. The reason why people can remain billionaires, not only did they get all the free money from the bank, treasury, and whatever, or the central bank just prints money and gives it to them, but they also have patents, so they'll buy stuff. I mean, they have the mortgages and the titles of everybody's house. They have, we've allowed these billionaire oligarchs just to basically control every resource of our country. The knowledge resources through patents and copyrights, the titles to our houses, our land, our property, the functions of government, the media. They just own. We've allowed these people to own everything, and then when you got more money than you know what to do with, or that you could spend in 1,000 lifetimes, you begin to start wondering what else you should do with your life. And one of the things that a lot of these guys have decided is, I want to control people. Now, I want to use people as puppets and whatever. And a lot of the ways that they get all that money is by doing things that is damaging to the environment and just society in general. So um, we need to eliminate all that stuff. So there is science, energy, technology, and medical technologies that are unbelievable. I mean, there have been cures for just about every disease we've had. I mean, I won't go into all the different cures and stuff, but there's like at least 6 ways that I know of to have unlimited energy and very cheap. I mean, it's basically you build the collector of the energy, for instance, solar, let's say. Um, you collect it, you store it, and then you send it out. And once you build, see the thing about gas, oil, coal, all this stuff, where you're using a resource, burning it or whatever, to create energy. Um, that has a limited resource. Then you use a system to convert it to energy, right? Well, there's different things. Like the sun is an unlimited resource, right? Unless, I mean, we got maybe a couple billion years before the sun is gone and we don't have a sun out there anymore. So this is the thing. If any technology where the input is zero cost, then all you have to do is build the system to collect that and convert it to the energy that you need. So this is when people talk about unlimited free energy, and people say, well, there's no such thing as free. Well, the free idea is that the input doesn't cost anything, right? You still had to build the system. You still had to be smart enough to make it, design it, and then use the resources to build it. But once you built it, I mean, the maintenance cost of keeping it up is tiny, especially if you compare it to the energy that's coming out of it, which is gigantic. So once we have that, I mean, free energy makes every other thing possible. So in other words, you have free energy, we can desalinate all the oceans. I mean, we have unlimited water, fresh, clean, good water by desalinating, because to desalinate, all you need is energy, right? I mean, it's just the same thing. It's like energy production is just when you build the system, and then maintaining it costs nothing, but the energy that comes out is way more valuable, right, than it costs to maintain it and the initial cost to put it in. The same thing with desalinating water. The system you create costs a certain amount, which is small. Then you have water, unlimited water come out. The same thing with food production. You can have food production where, I mean, they got hydroponic, where you just need water basically, and you can create plants, and you don't have to have like farms and stuff, or like all this pollution, all this nasty pesticides and everything else. I mean, we have technology to be able to produce food indoors, And when unlimited energy, then you can have lights. You can have fluorescent lights and whatnot to help you, and you could have a skyscraper. I mean, I've seen some plans where you create a skyscraper that can feed all of LA, one building. So it's basically the size of one skyscraper building, and it feeds all of LA from that one building, right? So local um, production of food. So we can have unlimited food, unlimited water, unlimited energy. Um, it's just a matter of doing it. It's just a matter of having a Manhattan style project. I mean, uh, they learn how to destroy the Earth in a pretty short period of time. So why not do the same thing to try to save the planet? Um, so then the other thing is we take back central banks and all this other stuff. Um, the UBI is definitely a good transitional thing, but I think the idea of money is going to go away. Just like, I mean, people are realizing now. I mean, Andrew Yang really brought it home that we're not going to have a system of, you know, automation is going to take away a lot of jobs. So jobs are gone. I mean, even I think 50 years ago, the money for labor paradigm should have been removed. I mean, ideally, what we should have done if we were going to transition properly, we should have probably in 1950 started saying, okay, the work week is going to get smaller and smaller, the salary is going to get bigger and bigger, and pensions and stuff are going to get bigger and bigger. So the productivity of each person um, was going up and up and up and up and up, right? And it's due to technology. It's not really that people got so much smarter or so much better at doing stuff. It's the same people, but they had different technology to make it better and better. So our work week should have gotten smaller. Our work day should have gotten smaller and smaller while still having the same resource or same amount of, if you want to call it, income, and then automate the stuff away. But now we're so far, from that. The labor for money idea is probably going to be gone, which is fine too, because really what we need to do is once we've produced unlimited energy, unlimited food, unlimited water, we already have enough shelter, but we could still produce more. Like smarter cities, not a smart city like the one where it's a surveillance state smart city. I'm talking about smart city just by the way you design it, like in a circular thing where the central piece has the hub for the food and stuff like that, so it's easier to get to, and then people still have their privacy and autonomy and whatnot. Um, so there's smarter ways to build cities just in general, but so we could build new cities also, but that's not a requirement. We already have enough housing and stuff to do it. So eventually, if we want to have like a Star Trek type future, um, it's like really, it's funny. We're right now at a point where all this is in our grasp, and I think at least, I mean, people hate Trump and stuff, but I won't say Trump has done things good or bad or whatever. I mean, I do think that uh, it's possibly slightly more good than bad, but he's in a time where everything could get really great. I mean, there are people, the people who have been stopping the oligarchs and whatnot, who have been stopping all this good stuff from happening. I think are finally losing power, and it's not Trump. It's more even other countries like Chinese, people. We've had a United States empire for a long time, and it's not really the United States per se. It's more the oligarchs who are from all over the world, but they've used the United States as kind of the police of the world and kind of like the beneficiaries. So in other words, uh, we have had a lot of benefit by living in the United States just because it was an empire. It's not because we produce things better, we're smarter, or whatever, but we just had an empire. Um, but the good news is with this, with the free energy, food production, water production, whatever, um, literally everyone on the planet should have a better lifestyle than the best middle class people in the United States. I mean, literally everybody in the world could have a middle class lifestyle, um, without worry about working or any of that stuff. We could have things automated and you know like a Star Trek, really literally a Star Trek type future. And I bring up Star Trek because it's really the only one where they've bypassed money and whatever. It's funny, the oligarchs. Every movie you watch is a dystopia. It's like a terrible thing where we still have oligarchs and still have all these disgusting, murderous people and stuff like that. Star Trek's really the only um, show that I could put my finger on that actually had a future where you bypass that. Now, naturally, um, even in that show, they had other planets where people weren't, you know, sharing or coming up with a good thing, and they still had bad guys or mean guys or whatever. But at least on Earth, Earth had moved to a higher civilization, and I think we're on the verge of that. So we're right on the verge of becoming a better civilization, and we have the everything that we need to get there. We have the knowledge, technology, and resources to do it. We just need to. Oh, and I'll have one more point. Just one more point. The oligarchs keep having us see, like, everybody. I mean, I support all the policies of Bernie Sanders, but Bernie Sanders is not. Um, he doesn't seem to have the strength to be a leader. Okay, I mean, you could say he's a leader in a way in just talking about these policies and not letting anybody stop him from talking about stuff. But I don't think he has the what it takes to become a president. And whatever happened to him in 2016, as far as Hillary Clinton and him just falling in line behind Hillary Clinton, I believe he was threatened. So here's what happens to every single individual. The oligarchs, um, once you become enough trouble for them, first they try to bribe you. Okay, they just pay you off. Okay, and that takes care of 90% of people who are going to cause them problems. They just pay them off, and boom, done deal. Um, if that doesn't work, they look through your past for every little thing that you might have done. If they can't find anything, they'll frame you for something. Okay, so in that way, they're going to blackmail you. So if they find something, they blackmail you on it. If you didn't really do anything bad, like Bernie Sanders, he didn't really commit any crime or do anything crazy. Uh, so they'll try to frame him. But Bernie Sanders actually can't be framed either, because usually they'll frame you with you know, either have a woman or somebody sneak up and try to do something corrupt, or just have you have sex with some underage, person, drug you and do all that stuff. So Bernie Sanders, they couldn't do that to him either. So they didn't have that. What I think they did to him is they threatened his family. So they said, okay, here's your grandkids. Guess what? You're gonna do what we say, or these grandkids might have an accident, basically. So he fell in line. Now, there's a next step too. If the bribing, the blackmail, and the threatening doesn't work, they just kill you. Boom, you're dead. They suicide you. And they do that all over the place. So you'll see, not everybody who got suicided wasn't being bribed also. Sometimes you're being bribed, you're being blackmailed, and eventually you're going to crack, and they think you're going to crack, and then they suicide you anyway. So not everybody who's been suicided was a good guy. Maybe JFK was the only one that might have been a good guy when he got suicided, but anyway, that's the thing. So to be somebody who can withstand all of that is very hard. It's very hard to put that on any one person. So I don't blame Bernie if he fell in line, but here's what Bernie could have done. He came out and said, "Look, I've been threatened," even though that might have got him his family killed or whatever. I would have just done it. I mean, I don't know. I can't say I would have done it, but anyway. It would have been good for somebody that this happens to just to come forward and say, "Look, I'm being threatened." See, people would have believed Bernie Sanders though, because they really do believe him on a lot of the stuff. So I think they would have believed him if he came out and said, "Look, the oligarchs threaten me. I'm gonna have to fall in line. Um, they want to kill my family. If anything happens to my family, this is what happened, right?" And that would have gone a long way. I think he could have made it with that. Um, but anyway, so that's a long-winded way of saying we got to stop counting on, oh, if we just get this person here, if we just make this person president, with this guy in Senate or this guy, and we got to stop counting on just individual people. This billionaire, if he does this, then this will be good and whatever. Forget about this individual people. I think we need to come up with a series of these ideas like Medicare for All, UBI, disclosing all this technology, Manhattan Project for Energy, just boom, 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 boom. This is what we want, and as a just every person get on board and say, okay, this is how it's going to be. Boom, you're going to do it. The government's going to do this. The oligarchs, if you don't like it, too bad. Oh, there's one other point that I want to make. All of these oligarchs, I already made it a little bit. All of these oligarchs, um, did you ever, I mean, who was ever asked, hey, how come all these people are billionaires for centuries and millennia, right? Uh, Whoever, I mean, why are we allowing people to take ownership of all of our resources and all this stuff, and even just the money supply itself, and billions of dollars? I mean, the money supply itself is actually a resource for the country, right? Um, we own this resource, okay? We allow, if we allow anybody to have X number of dollars or X number of this or that, um, that's our resource. That's our, as the public and the society, our resource. We need to take all this ownership back, right? Everything should be publicly owned. And everybody gets scared of so-called, when you say nationalize or whatever, because they think, first of all, here's what communism is. Capitalism and communism are actually identical. The only difference is the oligarchs from capitalism are in the private sector, and the oligarchs in communism are, they have government jobs. They pretend to be working for the government, right? That's the only difference. So communism is just oligarchs saying they work in the government even though they control everything. Capitalism is the same thing. It's oligarchs doing whatever they want, pretending to work in the private sector while they control the government anyway. So that's the only difference. But what we really need, instead of worrying about labels like isms this and ism that, is that we need to have all of the resources of the country, or really the world, is owned by all the people. So in other words, everything that the airwaves, the money supply, the natural resource, gas, and everything, everyone should have a percentage ownership of everything that happens in the world, right? So if we took all that value of every little thing and just said, okay, everybody has a shared percentage of all of it, then the whole idea of not having something, or having a billionaire that treats everybody, that acts like a king and treats everybody like a slave, that would never happen, right? And here's the thing. Unlike UBI, Medicare for All, and all these things where it's actually, there's this money that's being created and being spent, right? This money's coming out and going and having to be paid for stuff. The idea of the money um, is a little bit, that's not the final goal, I don't think. Instead of spending money, we just take ownership back of resources. So we all own a percentage of the resources. It's not really a hard thing to understand, but it is, since we're propagandized so much about capitalism and money for labor and all this other stuff, and who's going to pay for it, and where's the money coming from? Is it coming from me? I'm a middle class guy, and I don't want somebody taking my money that I earned or that. All that stuff is ridiculous. It's all stupid. If we took ownership of the resources ourselves as